Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome into Crossing the Aisle here live. WIAB coming to you from the Men's Health and Women's Wellness of Mississippi studios here in the heart of Flora, Mississippi. And we have a special guest today. Shaun is doing his favorite thing. He is sitting in a very boring lecture talking about the law, which I don't know. He does like to talk about some boring law all the time. So he should be right at home there. But I'm sure he's having a blast. And we have a very special guest. If any, I know there's got to be more people out there like me who were captivated by this story. So we've got Marsha Stacey here, and I think you don't give yourself enough credit for some of your writing that you have put out there, because it really is great. And not even just this, but so all of your posts just are always so inspirational and heartwarming, and they educate you. But you came across I don't know. I'm gonna let you tell us how you got into this, but I was sucked in, like sucked in, Marsha. I kid you not. And so Marsha and I became quick friends recently because we bonded over the Karen Reed trial. We both were just really, really in the weeds of that. And so I asked her, I said, do you ever talk about the catfish story anymore? Because I was on the edge of my seat when all of this was going on. And you were such a good teaser with it too. You'd put out a part and then you would wait a few days and then you'd put out another part. And
because it took me a few days to write it.
Oh no, it's very complicated, this story. And there are lots of pieces to it. And so I'm going to let you just start from the very beginning. Like how did you get in? How did you find out about this? Like what made you want to go down this rabbit hole, and were you just completely shocked with what you found? You go ahead, because y'all are going to love this. Y'all are going to be hooked.
Hooked is a good word.
Yeah, that's right. It is a perfect word. What's even crazier, y'all, is that what she found out, and obviously she has a job working within the law, but what she realized is that there are no laws in Mississippi to stop this from being able to happen. So keep that in mind as you hear this craziness.
So, it fell in my lap. And, I guess I love a good mystery. And my family knows that, I think I'm a detective or whatever. Since I was a little girl, I loved Nancy Drew and, wanted to solve a mystery. But so I don't know how I kind of was known in my little circle for being able to figure things out. I remember one of my best friends bought a dog online and was waiting and waiting for the dog to arrive, and the dog never arrived. And I was like, it's a scam. And she was like, I don't think so. And so I did some digging and found a picture of the dog she thought she bought, from years ago, posted on YouTube or something like that. That's just one example. I did things like that all the time. And so I have a relative who at the time was in high school. She was 17 and she was on all the apps. And they're all the apps that I don't understand. And
the ones that run the show today.
Right. And she met someone that she was calling her boyfriend on Tinder. And he was significantly older than she. He was, I want to say, about 10 years. This is what she was telling her family about the person that she believed she was dating. And they had not met yet, but were planning to meet in Starkville in a few, I don't know, that weekend or next weekend, something. So an older relative of both of ours asked me if I would look into this guy because she was concerned about it. She was like, he's a lot older. She hasn't met him. Will you just check him out and make sure that he's not a serial killer?
Right.
So I started to do that. And I texted her and I said, hey, look, don't think I'm judgy or that this is like, I just want to make sure you're safe. Tell me about this guy. Give me some information. Let me just check him out and make sure that he's okay. So she starts giving me some details, and full name. She said his name was Justin Andrew Mitchell. He was from the New Albany area. He was 38, I believe. And then some of the details started getting stupid weird. And as I'm hearing them, I'm thinking, surely, like, that just doesn't sound right. He had apparently fathered a child at age 14 that he had full custody of. And he had taken in another child. Wait, did I say 38? 28. I'm sorry, 28. 28-year-old man, okay, with a natural child that he had custody of and
that he fathered at 14.
At 14. And a daughter, a little girl was like living with him that he was trying to adopt. And the story was a friend of his had OD'd maybe, and he took in this child, another little girl. Both names were a variation of Kaylee, Callie. It was like almost exactly the same name, but spelled differently and I guess pronounced differently.
So strange.
It was so weird. I figured some of that out later, but she said that he lives in Hattiesburg and that he wrote grants for Child Protective Services. And he was building a house, but he lived in an apartment, and a couple other things I can't remember. The dog was a big deal. He had a dog, a Great Dane named Sandy, that he would send pictures of. Okay, so that was basically the bulk of the background. So with those details, I started looking into and trying to find a Justin Andrew Mitchell who lived in Hattiesburg, who was from North Mississippi, who was the same age, who worked in that industry, and I couldn't find one.
And with that many details, that's odd.
Right.
You should be able to find someone.
And there were some that came close. There were some that were, it was not a Justin Andrew Mitchell, but there was a Justin Mitchell who used to live in Hattiesburg. He's actually a reporter and went to work on the coast, and now he's in New Orleans, I believe, because I became friends with him on Facebook after this.
Yeah, because when you told this story, then everybody's like Googling Justin Mitchell,
right,
and like sending him probably awful messages like, how dare you do this?
Well, I actually, and I don't want to jump ahead, but I actually found as many as I could, and I messaged them because I was concerned that someone had stolen someone else's identity, especially when I found out that there was a credit card in the name of Justin Mitchell. And the reason I knew that is because Justin had sent my relative flowers on 2 separate occasions, one for Valentine's Day and maybe one for some other reason. I don't know. Anyway, so when I couldn't put the pieces together and find exact matches, I was like, something's not right. And when you can't find somebody, that generally means they're not real in some way,
right?
Or they're hiding something. They part of this story is not true. So,
and this is after MTV had the catfishing show, and so that had kind of been like a phenomenon.
It had, but I had never watched it. I wasn't plugged into that world at all. I mean, I'm old and like, and let me just say this happened in 2018, so 7 years ago.
And to this day, you're still getting more information.
I mean, I see. But so we, even some of the socials weren't they were newer, or Snapchat was. I don't know how long all these things, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But I was just not familiar with a lot of this social media aspect of kind of what was going on.
So I guess my immediate thought would be, Marsha, that, okay, this is some pedophile. This is someone much older who's attempting to lure my relative in.
I didn't go there. I didn't go there. No, I just, I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't know. I just couldn't. I didn't have an idea of what it was.
Something wasn't right.
But I just knew something wasn't right. So I asked her to send me pictures of this house he was building. So she sends me those. She sends me tons of pictures that he had sent to her of himself. And I mean, he's darling to look at. Just cute as a bug. But he took tons of selfies. his shirt was never buttoned up high enough for me. Like I was like, so he was out and about in Hattiesburg, a single guy, and he was sending her all these pictures and of his family and his mom who died, and of his sister, and then of these girls, these two daughters. And so when she sent me the pictures of the house, I asked her for an address and she didn't have one. So I did a land search, and I couldn't find a Justin Andrew Mitchell who owned like a piece of property that they would be building a house on. Then I reverse searched the pictures of the house he was building, and it was in a real estate listing. So I knew then he had lied to her about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent it to her and I said, everything else may be true, but he ain't building a house in Hattiesburg. This house has been built and it's on the market. And so after a few of those, I finally was like, just ask a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so she started to, and the answers were very defensive. Things like, I've been through this with you 1,000 times. I don't know why you're coming at me. I don't know why you're asking all these questions. I've told you everything about myself, and
Mm-hmm.
very, very much gaslighty.
Yeah.
And then then she writes something else, and Justin sends back, a book of encyclopedias. Like, it was the longest message I've ever seen. And there ain't no way a boy wrote it. Like, it was,
Too detailed.
it was an epistle. It was, and with commas, and it was wordy. It didn't sound right. It didn't match what she was telling me. So, but I wasn't going there at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spoiler alert. But
Yeah.
anyway, so, I was like, look, dude's not real or something's off. I really don't want you to go to Starkville and meet this person. It makes me really nervous for you. And she was like, yeah, I probably won't. And then a couple of days later, she was like, yeah, I think I'm going. I was like, well, hold the phone.
Yeah.
Because I started doing some digging on those pictures and I found the real guy. And she was like, no way. And I said, yes. And his name is Scotty Spain. And he lives outside of Hattiesburg, or at the time in Hattiesburg, I don't know. And I said, I found his Facebook. I found his mom's Facebook.
So basically, this person was using someone else's pictures
Correct.
and their life story and trying to almost become that person or be that person to her.
Well, we thought it was Scotty, but pretending to be Justin. That was the only thing that made sense, because I've got Scotty's life opened up on social media.
Mm-hmm.
All the pictures are of Scotty. They're the same one. In my head at that time, the only conclusion I could come to was Scotty Spain is Justin Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like, that jerk. Like, he has catfished me. I can't believe he would do this. Why,
Right.
all that.
And I'm sure she would think, people would think, oh, well, she's done with him. End of story. But that is not where it is. We got to take a commercial break. But y'all, you're not going to believe it gets crazy, crazy, crazy. So stay with us and we will be right back here on WIB 103.9. We are back here with our special guest today, Marsha Stacey, who is telling us one of the craziest stories I've ever heard in my life. So she, to recap, we're at the point where she has a family member who starts to date a guy, and she's going to look into him and realizes that this guy's not real. He's someone else. She figures out who the someone else is, and then what happens?
So when I told her who about Scotty, that I'd found Scotty, I'd found all of Scotty's pictures. It had to be Scotty who was behind pretending to be Justin Mitchell. So she,
So at that point, you think she's talking to Scotty,
yeah,
and he's pretending to be someone else.
That's right. And so I think she ultimately got kind of a hold of him like on Twitter or something, because I think she Facebook messaged him and Instagram, like everything, but they weren't friends on any of those things. So finally she gets in touch with him on one of the socials, and she's like, what, you're catfishing me. Like, why would you do that? And he was like, who are you? And she was like, well, quit playing. Like,
Yeah.
I've been talking to you for 2 months, and, and he is like, I have no idea who you are or what you're talking about. And I'd started to write a blog post about it.
Uh-huh.
And which I'll talk about, and please remind me to the reason I wrote the blog post. And so I was calling out Scotty in the blog post. And I mean, I was like, ready to hit publish.
Yeah.
And she said, Marsha, I don't think it's him. And I was like, what are you talking about? We have all this evidence. Of course it's him.
Yeah.
And she was like, I can't explain it, but he is genuinely shocked. He genuinely has no idea what's going on. I think somebody is using his pictures and pretending to be Justin Mitchell. And I was like, oh my gosh, well, that doesn't make sense. But I guess it does.
So because we know the Justin Mitchell name is not real because you can't find him in Hattiesburg.
That's right.
So now we know that there's got to be somebody who's using Scotty's pictures, but also using another name.
Right. That's right. So that's where we were. And so I said, at some point, I think before she had gotten in touch with him, she paid $1 to reverse search the phone number that she was talking to him on White Pages. And it came back with a girl's name. And I was like, don't pay much attention to that, because when you're trying to, match up details to somebody, phone numbers are the least reliable, because they change, from one person to another or whatever. And so, but that was in the back of our mind, that this number had come up to a girl. Well, eventually they start chatting as if they're going to figure it out themselves, because he's baffled and she believes him. And I'm on the fence as to whether or not I believe him or not. But, and so she sends him the phone number that she has in her phone stored as Justin Mitchell. He puts that number into his phone, and it pops up attached to a name that's already stored in his phone. And it was Haley Cook Snapchat. That was how it was stored in his phone. And he texts her back and says, I knew this girl was not real on Snapchat. Haley Cook. Apparently, he had been Snapchatting with a girl named Haley Cook, or he believed to be Haley Cook. And
from that same number.
Or attached to that number.
Attached to that account, yeah.
And he said he thought she was like, she started kind of acting weird or something. Some red flags went up.
No, we know this person is using Scotty's pictures, has found this Justin Mitchell name somewhere, and then is also Snapchatting people as a Haley Cook.
That's right. And so I was like, okay.
Snapchatting the real Scotty. or sorry,
Snapchatting Scotty as
yeah,
that's correct. So I was like, this is bizarre. So at this time, nobody on planet Earth knew what we were looking into, that there was a mystery surrounding a Justin Mitchell, none of that. And so I hop on Scotty's Facebook, and the name that came up when my relative white paged the number, reverse searched the number, was Hannah Bagwell, not Haley Cook, Hannah Bagwell. So I get on his Facebook page and I find a Hannah Bagwell who lives in Hattiesburg, who had just gotten her master's at Southern and was working with Child Protective Services,
Of all places.
whose mother had just died in November of cancer. And I was
starting to line up.
I was like, whoa, there is way more to this than we thought. And so I'm sending all of this back to my relative, and she's sending it to Scotty. One thing she did with Scotty that I think some of this, I hope, is some kind of PSA. Like, you got to know who you're talking to.
Yes, absolutely.
And so she made him take a picture holding 2 spoons. And I mean, she said, do it now. And it came. I know things can be photoshopped and whatever, but
this is so scary with AI now. Even it's like,
oh, that's
stuff,
true.
you know,
and that stuff wasn't around back then. So she got him. That's how she started to kind of trust talking to him.
And believe that he was telling her the truth.
That's right. So we have a Hannah Bagwell who is friends with him on Facebook, and so either I asked, because I started talking to him too, or she did, do you know her? And he was like, I don't have a clue who she is. He was in college or living in Hattiesburg, on campus. He just accepted friend requests left and right. Like everybody
does that. Yeah.
And so the last thing that happened before I posted about it and kind of the final confirmation, she lives in a really little bitty town where she knows everybody. Her parents know everybody. And the flowers that had been ordered came from a local flower shop. So her mama called the florist, who she had known all of her life, and said, look, not trying to get a credit card number or anything you can't give me, but I need to know the details from this order attached to this credit card, name or phone number or address or something like that. And so she provided that to her. It was from Justin Mitchell with the phone number that she had in her phone, with an address in Hattiesburg. I didn't realize this until like 2 years ago, with a zip code of Myrtle, Mississippi. And Myrtle, for anybody who doesn't know, is a little bitty town outside of New Albany, about 8 miles outside of New Albany. And an email address. So at the time when I'm doing this, I have some really good software. A lot of lawyers use it. It's, it's better than what you can just pay for, monthly online. And at the time, you could put in an address, and it, even in an apartment, and it would tell you everybody who had ever lived at that address or had a bill sent there, had, utilities hooked up, a cell phone bill, all of that. So you could have roommates that might not be on a lease, but if they had a cell phone bill go to that apartment, they would be listed there. So you've got a list of like hundreds of people. And I combed through it, and no Justin Mitchell had ever lived in that address, which was an apartment in Hattiesburg, but a Hannah Bagwell had. And so at that point, I was like, I am really sorry to tell you, but you've been talking to a girl this whole time.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was hard to accept.
Yeah. Especially if you think you're dating this person, and I mean, they've told you all these details about their life, and
that's right.
And then you find out after months of, I'm sure, talking to them every single day, that it's not even just a catfish. It's a completely different type of human being. I mean, it's different sex.
Right. And, so she finally called her out on it. I think she kept trying to call the number and he wouldn't answer because it wasn't a he.
Right.
And she was asking enough questions, I guess, that Hannah got spooked. And finally, if I remember right, she texted and said something like, hey, Hannah. And she immediately blocked her on everything. And then at some point, it might have been a few days later, I don't remember, but all I remember is my girl saying, I don't understand why you would do this to me. How could you do that to me? And she said something like, everything I told you was real. I'm just not that particular person. And she was like, you're a female,
I
like
mean,
you're a girl, like
who
this
cares
is
if the details were real? Like,
right.
this is the whole sham.
And none of the details were real. I mean, well, actually, they were for Hannah. You
Right.
know, it was like she had taken pieces of Scotty's life and pieces of her own life and meshed them together to make this person become real.
Yeah. And look, you might think, okay, you figured it out. We're not going to talk. We're going to tell this person off and then tell them to go to hell, probably, and then it's over with. You're never going to talk to them again. The story's over. No, well, it's not. There is so much more. We do have to take another commercial break, but it gets lots crazier. Stay with us, and we will be right back to talk about how much crazier it actually got. We'll be right back. We are back here on Crossing the Aisle, WYAB, with Marsha Stacey, who is a judge in Madison County, but she's also like a PI, you could say. I mean, she should be.
I wish
She
I could
should
get
be.
paid for it.
But we're telling this crazy, crazy, crazy catfishing story that, if you think it can't happen to you, think again, because it does happen, and it's happened to a lot of people, and evidently this person was a mastermind behind this. So tell us what happens next. You've now figured out who it
Right.
is, you've called her out on it.
Right. And
Where do you go from here?
So as you and I have talked about, you just have to believe like they're breaking some law, or something.
Mhm.
Well, she wasn't. I mean, she was simply pretending to be another person online, which is not illegal. She wasn't taking money from anybody. She was spending money on these girls. But a big question that I had was, how did she get a credit card in this person's name? And so I didn't know what to do with the information that I had, but I felt like I have to do something
Mhm.
because my little relative, if it's happening to her, it's going to happen to somebody else. And I just wanted to try to figure out how I could get the information out there bigger than just my social media,
Uh-huh.
outside of my little bubble, so that it was findable for
Mhm.
somebody else.
Right.
That was all I wanted. I wanted the name Justin Andrew Mitchell out there.
Because I just said in the commercial break, this person couldn't keep this charade up for too long with a new person until they're going to start to question and look.
Right.
And so you wanted it to be that when they did start
That's
to
right.
question, they immediately find the story and who this is and what they're doing.
That's right. So I've had a blog for a long time that, some old posts are really cringe. And then there's some very personal posts from before this. And then now it's turned into all of my catfish
The
posts.
catfishing blog.
But it's called uglyreal.com. Anyway, that's where all of these posts are. If anybody's out there listening.
Yeah, and I'll post the link to
It's
that.
fine.
No, because I want people to be able to see this. I mean, because we're not. This show's so short. I mean,
Yes.
you can't tell half of this
No.
in an hour because it's so intricate.
It is. And the reason I took so long though on what started it off is because once I put my first blog post out there, and if you read it, it's really confusing because I didn't want to use Scotty's name.
Right. You want to protect the people that you're talking to.
And I didn't put Hannah Bagwell's name out. I did not do that until 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Was it 2 years or a year? 2 years.
I think it's 2 years. I think
a year and a half.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it was. It was around Christmas of, not this past Christmas, but the Christmas before.
Mm-hmm.
Because number one, what if I was wrong?
Yeah,
I knew I wasn't, but what if I was?
Mm-hmm.
And then, I wasn't doing it to ruin anybody's life or make her have a whole bunch of attention on her. I just wanted it to stop, or it to be capable of being stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody else met Justin Mitchell on Tinder or another dating app or whatever, and if they Googled them,
right,
my
something
blog
would
post would come up, and they would just know that there was a reason to ask questions. So after that happened, people began to find my blog and contact me.
So it worked.
It did work. And
multiple people.
at the end of this, I mean, I honestly have no idea how many girls she's done this to.
Mm-hmm.
But I have personally spoken to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I've personally gotten to know 6 that she's done this to, and then the collateral damage of the rest of it.
Right.
So in the beginning, the first girl that contacted me, she had actually already figured out that it was Hannah Bagwell because she was from North Mississippi. And an MO here was like she was already friends with Hannah Bagwell on Facebook, but she didn't know she was talking to Hannah Bagwell. She thought she was talking to Justin Mitchell. So before she called her out, over text or whatever, she realizes that she's got a Hannah Bagwell as a friend on Facebook, and a picture that she had sent, that Justin had sent to her, was Hannah's profile picture. So she wasn't as good as we thought she was at one time. It was just that she didn't have any idea that people were onto her.
Right.
And the way she figured it out is she paid $1 and reverse searched the number.
Right.
So she was, she knew who it was, but she couldn't figure out who the guy in the picture was. And I was very protective of Scotty at that time. And it took me a while I got his permission first to say, can I tell her, it's happened again. Can I tell her? And he was like, yeah, it's okay. I said, I vetted her. She's normal.
She's telling the truth.
And so one thing that victim and I did together was, because she had that same curiosity. Once she figured out Justin wasn't real and it was Hannah Bagwell, she was as curious as you were reading the story. She was I want to know more.
I really was hooked, line, and sinker. You did 11 parts, and they were days apart. And I was like, when's the next? I was refresh. When's the next post coming?
So funny. So we set out to figure out who one of the little girls in the picture was that she was passing off as daughter.
Kylie.
Mm-hmm. So I realize now that the one she was saying was the real daughter had looked a lot like Scotty. But there were a lot of pictures of Scotty with his real half sister, who really doesn't look a lot like Scotty. That was the adopted daughter. The biological was this one girl that we couldn't figure out who it was, because she was not part of Scotty's family. And she was clearly not in any pictures with Scotty Spain. So we set out to figure out who she was. It took me 2 or 3 days. And I did a lot of this figuring out from reverse searches or looking at tiny details in pictures, like logos on a shirt, and figuring out who somebody was that was connected, to figure out, that's how I figured out who Scotty was, because of a logo on his mama's shirt in a picture. Anyway, we found this little girl who lived in Batesville, or North Mississippi somewhere. She was 14 years old, and I had a mutual friend with her mother. You gotta love small town.
I know, right?
Small town Mississippi. So I got my friend to contact this little girl's mom and ask if I could talk to her. And I was like, look, I don't think there's any reason to be concerned as far as exploitation is concerned.
That's just haunting as a mom, to find out somebody's using your kid's picture to do stuff like this.
Right. But I explained to her that apparently she had jacked her daughter's pictures to be a fake girl in an intricate online dating catfish scam. And I was like, I wonder how she picked her.
Yeah.
And she was like, what was the name of the guy? And I told her, and her older daughter was in the room at the time. And she told her older daughter, or they were listening or whatever. And she was like, Mama, don't you remember when that weird guy was Snapchatting me? And I got kind of creeped out, and I got off, and I defriended him, or whatever you're doing. His name was Justin Mitchell. So he'd
attempted to do the same to her,
to the older daughter,
and took her little
and
sister's
I would
pictures.
imagine realized that there was a strong resemblance between her little sister and Scotty. So she puts her in what I call the dollhouse. She cuts out that picture, tapes it on a doll, and that becomes the doll in the dollhouse. And but that wasn't the first or last child that she would hijack their likeness, their names. As more victims came forward, I realized that she had done it with other people, and they were even people that she knew, and they had no idea. But if we
Yeah.
get to keep talking about this down the road, I don't want to
I know.
give everything
I know.
away.
I know.
Um,
There's so much more, and we do have the next commercial break that we've got to take, and then we have such a short little segment. We got to come say bye, but I want you to come back because I want you to finish tell because it's so there's so many details,
it's so hard
and
to wrap up.
it's a long story to tell, but it's a story that needs to be told because I think people need to be aware that this is happening. And then I definitely want Shaun to be here when we have this conversation one day about what we can do legally to stop this, or if that's even possible, because how do you police it? And then does it
It's just not against
you
the
know
law to
yeah,
be somebody else online,
but it
as long as
it
you're not
just
hurting
seems
people. Except she
yeah, but
was,
she was hurting people.
but it wasn't. She was morally hurting them.
And
It was a
also
moral thing.
remember, this is someone who's working in child protective services, and she's like a therapist, and she's like, see, this is who's giving people advice. But yeah, so we got to take our last break, but y'all stay with us. We'll be right back here on WIB. We are back here to wrap up this final segment for the week. We have just a few minutes, but I'm going to post the link and you can all go and read all the different parts of the blog that explain it all and lay it out. And, there's so many details that we could not get to today. And I do want you to come back because I think everyone will be shocked at how it finally ends.
Yep.
I think it's over. I mean, we haven't recently heard from anyone, or are you? It's not that they're contact. I felt like it's me
They
because
might.
I was so into it. I was like, I was into this like I was the Karen Reed trial. I was like, I wanted more. And so I think recently there hasn't been anyone that we know
No
of.
one has contacted me, but at some point I found out that she was still using Scotty's pictures, but was going by a different name. It was Justin McLean.
Oh yeah. Forgot about the McLean.
Justin Mitch McLean. Right. So she could still keep the credit card, but she changed, and that was after I had written again, I think. And so she changes the name. So I had to put another post out there to let people know she's still doing it, but you got to look for Justin Andrew Mitchell, and you got to look for Justin Mitch McLean also.
Yeah.
So I haven't. If she's still doing it,
she's gotten a new name.
And I mean, Scotty's pictures are totally burned. But that was why it's so hard for me to imagine that she could still be doing it. Except that I believe that she really can't stop.
I hope
so. She's probably doing it, but maybe not as successfully.
Yeah, I hope that she was exposed to people that knew her to the point where it's going to be harder for her anyway.
So the long and short of it, too, and this still isn't giving anything away surprise-wise, is
we got 20 seconds.
She had been doing it for 17 years.
17 years
since high school, junior high.
Yep. Crazy. So y'all know who you're talking to. Find out who you're talking to. Vet them.
Absolutely.
And that's all we've got for today. I wish that we had a whole nother hour because we could keep going. But we will be back here on Monday, and we will definitely have Marsha back to finish out all the catfishing.
Thank you, Lindsey.
Thanks.